Now we're going live here real quick. Let me get my two cameras here adjusted. All right, so we're basically going to talk to each other, Kory.
Okay.
But
Trying to get
so Kory's getting his YouTube. I had to refresh the page there.
There we go.
And
All right.
yeah, so we're going to be talking to you guys for some time here, basically until, let me get this one here a little bit. Sorry, we're doing both Facebook and YouTube. Anybody wants to say hey to us?
We
That
do
is the
have
plan.
about 4 people on right now.
Okay, doke. Awesome.
All right.
Go to our, because I can read my YouTube ones.
Okay. So
Maybe go to the Facebook, because Facebook is still doing the thing where it won't actually show us the comments
and
very
now
well.
I see the comments.
Cool.
All right.
Okay,
Cool.
so you can keep an eye. So we're going to be talking here just a second about Kory, kind of his history, and then we're going to be taking your questions. So ask your question. Go ahead and ask it 2 or 3 times if we don't get to it. There may be some questions we just plain ignore.
Yep.
There's anything about your personal life in the last couple years is just going to be ignored. Like
Pretty much.
none of their business. So
Yep. We're here to talk about Horse Plus, my
right.
history with horses, and maybe some tips on helping you guys with your horses.
yes, so if anybody has a training question, hit us up because we got the master trainer here, especially if you want to know about
Well,
packing mules.
I do okay.
So how is Kory feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I'm doing physical therapy. I can't really talk about the extent of my injuries right now.
Yep.
But I am definitely feeling better.
So Kory's on light duty, so that's kind of why we're hanging out in the studio instead of actually training horses. But we did get a really cute little letter from a super sweet little girl named
Victoria.
Victoria.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. You want to read it? You want me to read it?
You can read it.
All right. Hi, my name is Victoria. I'm 11 years old and I love horses. I love watching YouTube and learning about horses. I admire your hard work that you do for the horses. I dream of being just like all of you when I'm older. I also want to be a horse vet like Dr. Lydia. Although I've never owned a horse, but someday I will. It will be from your rescue. That's so awesome. Instead of presents for my birthday, I'll ask for money and donate to you guys and the horses. How sweet of Victoria.
That's pretty awesome.
Incredible. So only 11 years old. And I have been around horses twice, but your videos, even auction ones, show that horses, even in bad situations, never stop fighting. I love them dearly. If you could please name a chestnut mare coda for me. Thank you for helping horses.
I think we can do that.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
We will.
So how old were you when you started with horses, Kory?
Well, when I first got around horses, I was 3 years old, or about 3 years old. My grandma actually didn't let me ride for about a year. She made me do all the chores that went along with it before I actually got to get on a horse. And then for my birthday, when I was 4 years old, she actually rented a couple of Shetland ponies for me and my twin brother, Gabriel. And, she helped us out for a little bit. We were walking around and she went inside. We had helmets on, so we were just riding around. Walking, I was like, this is fun. I want to try to go a little faster. So I kicked it into a trot. And I was trotting around a little bit, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to go faster than this. I wanted to be like the cowboys on the movies I watched. So I got it moving into that lope, and out of nowhere, it just stopped. I did a front flip over its head, face planted in the arena. I walked back in my grandma's house. I was crying, was bleeding out of my elbow, my knee, my chin. And she looked at me, looked outside, saw the horse running around the arena. She said, "What are you doing? Go get your horse." And then she brought me back out, got me back on, and she helped me out for about 10, 15 minutes and got me off and went and cleaned me up. I've been stuck on horses ever since.
So basically you had a rough experience and she could have coddled you and been like, oh, you poor boy, don't get on the horse, it's too dangerous. Yeah. And that could have changed your whole destiny.
Oh, absolutely. Nope, she got me right back out there, put me right back on.
And that's what you're supposed to happen, right? So
absolutely.
If you fall off your horse, get back on, because that's what cowboys do, and cowgirls for that matter.
Absolutely.
So all right, so you started mucking stalls at 3, taking care of horses.
Feeding, mucking stalls, all that.
3 years old.
3 years old.
Man, most 3-year-olds don't even know that they're supposed to not eat dirt.
I was still doing that too, Jason.
Oh man! All right. So after 4, how did your horse experiences go?
So I kept going. She only had the Shetland ponies for about a week, and then me and my brother started riding on her other horses that she had. She had about 4 horses at the time. It was Nick, Tilly, Jim, and Rosie. And I continued to ride at least Tilly and Jim for the next few years through high school. I didn't ride too much. I was more focused on playing football at the time. And, well, at about 10 years old, I was put into the state system. I was in a group home, and I was lucky enough that the group home I was in actually had a horse program, so I got to continue riding there. And I was there for 4 years, and there was this one award there that everybody tried to get. It was called Wrangler of the Year. And I worked really hard for 4 years, and 3 years I didn't get it. And the fourth year, they finally gave it to me, so I got my name on a trophy over there. Sometimes when I go visit that group home, all the kids are just looking at me in awe, because that was what everybody aimed to do. And whenever those guys showed up, we were just amazed, asked them a bunch of questions. Overall, it was a cool experience. Like I said, after I left there, I was in high school. I didn't really ride too much, just maybe on the weekends, family holidays when my family brought the horses out. And then when I was 18 years old, I got back into horses. I started working on a dude ranch. It was a company called Horse and Around Show Rides out at Chancellor Ranch in Bodega Bay, California. And when I started there, I was Division I offensive lineman, so I weighed about 300 pounds. So I could only ride the draft horses at the time, and within a year, I actually cut my weight down to 190, so I was able to ride any horse I could. And I had a friend of mine who went to Feather River College, and she came back and she told me about her experience, and I just had to go check it out. I drove up one weekend with a buddy of mine, and I signed up for classes that day and started up there a week later. And that's really when me and horses took off. I started learning everything there was to know about riding, training, and I learned from a lot of great people in the industry, including the staff there at Feather River College. They were just amazing. They really knew their stuff. They taught me how to rope. They taught me how to ride properly, because I hadn't been riding properly. But yeah.
There's a difference between sitting on a horse and riding a horse, right?
Oh yeah, and they had a sign there too. It said there's more to riding a horse than sitting up there and let your legs hang over. And I definitely learned that there was. There was days where we had clinicians out, and I would be trying to get stuff done on my 2-year-olds, and I'd be at it for about half an hour, just trying to get them to get up in that lope. Really, I had one horse that he just did not want to run, and I got off the horse that day, and I about fell to my knees. My legs were so sore.
And this was after you've been riding a lot, so you were in shape for riding.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. So what kind of program does Feather River College offer for the equestrians?
So they offer natural horsemanship classes. They offer equitation classes to teach you how to ride properly. They have a colt starting class where you can actually learn how to start 2-year-olds, start horses, young horses under saddle, really make sure that you're giving the releases on time and being effective with your cues and how you're asking the horse to do things. And I did that program for 4 years.
So you have a 4-year college degree for horse training and management.
Yep.
That is so awesome. So what happened? What led you after Feather River?
After Feather River College, I actually took a year off from horses. I worked in construction. I still rode a little bit. I still had that horse Jim that I'd been riding since I was young. And I had him up there in Quincy, California. So I took him on trail rides, but he was older. He was probably like 27. And just exercising him, maybe an hour here and there.
Sure.
And just went back into doing trail rides. And then I started out in Sacramento with a couple friends of mine I went to college with. And there I was doing trail rides, but I was mostly doing lessons. At that point, I probably had about 20 people I was giving lessons to. Overall, me and those people didn't see eye to eye, so I ended up leaving for about a year, and then I got a call one day and they wanted me to come back out and help them out. So I went back out, and at that point their lesson program had grown, and I was giving lessons to roughly 100 people out in the Sacramento Valley area.
100 people at a time, or just
rotate
just through the week?
Throughout.
Okay.
Yeah, some people came out once a week, some people came out once every other week or once a month, just depending on what they could do.
That still sounds like a lot of people to me to be training.
It was, but it was great. I got to see a lot of different things and really kind of grow my knowledge and helping people out and figuring out different ways to get through to different people. I actually did work with a few people with disabilities too. I had about 5 or 6 people with autism that I taught how to ride and
That's so cool.
helped out.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So I know you're the World Reserve Grand Champion mule trainer. How did you get into
Yes.
mule training?
I started a packing program at Feather River College.
Okay.
I took those classes for about 3 years, and my second year of packing, a friend of mine wanted to get a Bishop Mules team together because she had been going since she was a kid. So it was me, her boyfriend at the time, and her cousin that actually went down to Bishop, California and competed in 2017, and we took second place overall in the competition. So I am 2017 Reserve World Champion Mule Packer.
So, okay. So before we got a couple good questions up here. Before we get there, you said you took 3 years of mule packing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there literally 3 years worth of information you can learn about packing mules?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I learned everything I needed to do in the first semester.
Okay, because I'm like, I'm pretty ignorant about packing mules, but I'm like 3 years is a long time to study packing mules. So
Okay.
it's kind of a class that keeps going though. You
Yeah.
keep getting better at it. You just keep
Absolutely.
practicing. You bet.
I mean, by my second year in that class, or pretty much my fourth semester, the teacher would show up, like, "You got this, Kory?" "Yep." I'm like, "All right, see you later."
So an easy A.
Yeah, exactly. He had me teaching the class by the time I was done at that college.
Well, that is so cool. Okay, so I'd love to know if there's a difference between training horses and training mules.
There definitely is. Mules are a lot more calculating in what they do, and they're kind of smarter than horses. It's just really, if you mess up training a mule, they're a lot less forgiving than horses are.
So, and smarter isn't always better when it's training, is it? Like, I'm just,
Something smarter than you, it's kind of hard to work with it, right?
there are some smart mules for sure.
Yeah, there are.
Oh man. Alrighty, let me. What do you do with mules? Well, that's kind of an open-ended question.
Well, you can do everything you do with a horse with a mule. Just, it's a matter of figuring out the training there.
So I've seen mules barrel racing. I've seen them doing gymkhana. They do
yeah.
cowboy mounted shooting off of mules. They pack with them. So maybe explain what packing is. Maybe people don't know what packing is with mules.
So packing mules, you have a different type of saddle. You either have a sawbuck saddle or a Decker pack saddle. A Decker pack saddle is a saddle with metal forks on the top that you can hang your boxes off, and the sawbuck saddle is a wooden one that kind of has like a cross like this, and you hang your boxes off of there. But what you do is you'll put your pack saddle on. It's got a few different pieces. It has the breast collar. It's got 2 cinches on it, a front cinch and a rear cinch, and it has something called a britchin that comes around the back. The britchin, it has a ring that sits up on the croup of the mule, and it has different straps that go around to the back just to kind of keep the saddle in place when you got your packs on. It really just depends on what you're packing. When I was doing the pack trips with the college, we had 5 different mules that we'd take out. 2 would have all of our camping equipment, stove, chairs. Some would have hay on them. We had one mule, he was pretty big, his name was Goliath. And we usually put the coolers on either him or another one. I can't remember the other one's name right now though. But they could pack quite a bit of weight. I mean, the coolers alone probably weighed about 110 pounds each. So typically that was all we put on that pack. But with the coolers, you have to put them in something called a sling. They still have the straps that go around the forks. But either way, after you put your boxes on, you put your top pack on, which is mostly like sleeping bags, stuff, light stuff. And then you have a tarp, or it's called a manti tarp, that you throw over the top of that. You bring it out, you make sure you fold it up nice and neat, tuck it under the boxes, and you have a few different hitches that you could throw over those packs. The most common one that we used was the box hitch, which is the hitch I actually used in competition. I was able to get that hitch tied in about 20 seconds in competition, which is pretty quick. The world record, I believe, is 16 seconds. So I actually got the 20 seconds done when I was giving a demonstration at Feather River College on packing, just kind of showing what we did in competition. That's the fastest I've ever moved around a mule. It was pretty cool. Like, I got done and I threw my hands up and I asked my person that was helping me out, how fast is that? And they said 20 seconds. Wow.
Nice. So that's actually a question I was wanting to ask is what is involved in competing? Like
It's just timed events.
okay, so it's a timed event,
Yeah.
and you have to do it properly, obviously. Okay.
So there's different events. There's a pack scramble, which is just chaos. You got your animals on one side for the intercollegiate class. You got one of your teammates down there holding all three of your animals, two mules and a horse, and then all your gear is in the center. When they shoot off the cap gun, you got to run across, grab your gear, go to your animals, start packing them up, and then run them across the finish line. For the professional pack scramble, all the animals are loose. So that is the complete chaos version. So all the animals are running around. You got to try to grab your animals, get your gear on them, and then run them across the finish line.
Catch the first one you can, pretty much.
Exactly. And I mean, I saw those professional guys doing it. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You also got the pack relay, which is where you're throwing your tarp up on the mule, then you have to throw your box hitch, and that's probably the biggest event there besides the pack scramble, which is seeing how fast you can throw that hitch.
So cool. So somebody asked, I don't remember their name, but they asked, so in training horses and mules, you train both well. Are humans more like mules or horses?
Well, it just depends on the person. Probably your more stubborn person would be more relatable to a mule, and I don't know. Yeah.
So keep the questions coming, y'all. Like, this is great. So, and it may depend on the animal, but do mules like people riding them, or do they like packing better, would you say? Which one's easier to train might be the...
Probably for packing.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty easy going. Once you get that pack saddle on them, they pretty much know what their job is. Just like a horse, too. You give them a job, and they're pretty content with their life.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how much weight can a mule carry? Like, I know Feather River College is very sensitive to making sure they don't overload their horses and their mules. They teach natural training. They're not out there just roping horses down for no good reason.
Yeah,
and
we don't rope horses there. We just rope cows. Yeah.
There you go. So what is the weight limit on a mule?
It's about the same as a horse.
Okay.
They could probably carry a little bit more, but you got to take into consideration with the pack on a mule, it's just dead weight. So it doesn't really... It's not like you riding an animal where you can actually adjust your weight accordingly. It's just a dead weight pack on top of them. So they could probably carry a little bit more if it's like a person riding them, but a pack you got to really take into consideration.
Okay. So I know you said the coolers are like 110, but it's a huge mule, so you had a couple 100 pounds on them. But
exactly. So it would be like, so the entire pack altogether probably weighed about 215, 220 pounds, which I'm about 250, and I could ride a horse that probably weighs about 900, 950 pounds, somewhere around there, comfortably. But, be a little bit better if the horse was a little heavier.
And there's a lot of discussion out there, what is the appropriate weight for a horse. The general rule seems to be about 20%. Some people say 25, some people say 10.
I mean, 10. It really just depends on your riding ability,
sure,
how you hold yourself in the saddle. But I wouldn't get on a horse that weighs 700 pounds. You're just no way.
Yeah. If the horse can carry you, it probably shouldn't carry you.
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't get on it. Let me see if there's any more questions going on. How do you pick a horse based on rider's weight? All right, well, we just answered that one. Yep. What was the toughest horse or mule you've ever trained?
The toughest horse I've ever trained?
Or mule. But mules are easy.
Before I went to college, there was this little Kiger Spanish Mustang gelding. His name was Skeeter, I'm sorry. But he gave me a lot of issues. I probably got bucked off that horse at least once a week.
Ooh.
Yep.
So he just knew what to do to get you off.
Exactly. And I didn't really have a very good facility. I was kind of riding him in his pasture when I was doing that. And yeah, he got me bucked off at least once a week, but right before I left, I had him figured out and he was riding comfortably.
So here's a question that's not on our list, but it's a question I have. Are there horses that behaviorally, because a lot of people say if the horse bucks, it's because it's in pain and it doesn't want it.
There's a lot of times where that's...
And that is true, but are there horses that behaviorally, they just don't want anybody up there?
Yeah, they just kind of learned how to get away from pressure, and just because, let's see. Yeah, they just kind of figured out how to get away with stuff, and they just kept being able to get away with things.
Sure.
Other things might have been a traumatic experience where a horse really just doesn't want anything to do with the person.
Sure. Absolutely.
But there are ways to kind of help them with that. I've been listening to a podcast recently that's kind of helping me understand horses a little bit better. I was actually recommended by an employee here at Horse Plus. Her name is Dallas, and honestly, I got to say she's a better trainer than I am. She really knows her stuff.
Dallas is?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our.
I'll catch up with her. It's fine.
Okay, good deal. And Dallas is actually our donor relations person, so that's pretty fun. So if she ever gets bored of working inside, she just go out and train.
Oh yeah, I pulled her out last Monday. We worked with Carol.
Nice.
She got in there, and I saw Carol relax. I've never seen Carol relax before, so she does know her stuff. I'm trying to figure it out so I can, do the same thing.
Wow, Daisy just sent 1,000 stars.
Oh wow, thank you so much, Daisy.
Oh wow, that is awesome. Any questions on Facebook going on there?
Not really.
Okay, you guys send some questions, like anything you want to ask.
And we did answer the question earlier about how I'm getting over my accident.
Yep.
I am doing a lot better. I'm in physical therapy, but I cannot talk about the extent of my injuries at this time.
Mm-hmm. So, they're asking, do you currently have a mule?
No, I do not currently own a mule, but there is a mule in my sights right now. He is a baby, probably about 4 or 6 months old.
Nice.
So I just gotta try to work my way into getting that.
Okay,
one.
here's a question for you. How old does a mule need to be before you train it to pack? In other words, before it can start working.
I mean, you could start getting used to things like the pressure of the saddle when it's young. You just don't want to put any weight on it until it's fully developed.
Okay.
So, I mean...
Is that the same with the horse? Two and a half, 3 years old as well when they're getting ready?
But, I mean, the best horse I've ever trained, I've ever worked with, I actually started messing with him as soon as he hit the ground. It's something called imprint training. And when done properly, it goes a long way. It's nothing too serious. You're just getting used to you touching it everywhere, picking up its feet. You might stick your finger in its mouth just to kind of get it used to having something in its mouth, like a bit down the road. And me doing that with that horse, by the time he was ready to start at 2.5, I had never had any issues. I mean, he was the only horse in the class that bucked when I turned him loose with the saddle on. But right after I got him and hopped on, he never hinted at bucking. It was like he'd been riding his entire life.
Wow.
Like I just barely put any pressure with my legs, and he was going that way. He was the easiest horse I've ever started, and his name was Hershey.
Nice. So, somebody's wondering what the difference between a burro, a mule, and a donkey is.
What?
So, a burro, a mule, and a donkey. What's the difference? So burro and donkey is the same thing.
Yeah, burro and donkey is the same thing. What a mule is a cross between a horse and a donkey, where the mom is a horse and the dad is a donkey. And then a henny is the opposite. So a henny would be the mom's donkey, and then the male is the horse.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, so what are pack mules used for? Like, so you said going camping basically out in the woods?
Yeah, so it's pretty much getting gear into places that you can't really get a vehicle. I've heard stories before about a group of mules actually packing a small helicopter into the backcountry to somebody's house. So the helicopter was completely decommissioned, like taken apart into pieces that the mule could carry comfortably, and then they brought it up, reassembled it, and they were able to use it up there. I don't know why they did that way, but I heard the story about that.
Why didn't they just fly the helicopter?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, mules, I know, and here's another thing to talk about a little bit. So mules are very short-footed, they say.
Oh, yes.
How does that compare to a horse?
Like I said before, mules are just a lot more calculating with their steps. I mean, yeah, it's just sometimes on those pack trails, you got really narrow trails, and you got like a rock face on one side and a cliff on the other. And you could trust that mule to walk down that trail without an issue.
So would you rather be on a mule riding on a dangerous trail? Or
absolutely.
Okay.
I'd rather be on a mule.
Okay.
And they have videos out there you can look. Just the crazy things that mules can do. You'll see them jumping from like rock to rock, and it's just the way they do it is insane.
So they're part mountain goat.
Exactly. So a way to really put it in perspective for you is, there was a clinician that came to Feather River College. His name was Brian Newbert, or is Brian Newbert. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. But he used to work for the BLM, rounding up Mustangs and wild burros and all that. And one day they had a pen set up. They were on horseback and they ran all these animals into this pen for the BLM. And out of the group, there was one wild mule in there. And all the horses and donkeys were running around the outside of the pen. It was like a big round pen. And that mule was just sitting in the center. And it was looking around. It just kept shifting its weight around that pen. And it finally settled on the gate to that pen. And he was thinking, there's no way that thing's going to try to jump that. The Mule took off full speed at the gate, dropped to his shoulders, slid underneath, and took off. They never saw it again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that could put them in the perspective of how smart a mule actually is.
Um.
And yes, you can ride a mule like a horse.
Yeah. So Donna from Facebook asked if you can ride a mule like a horse. So that leads me to a question. I'd never heard of a wild mule before. Is this a domestic mule that escaped, or do donkeys and horses actually breed in the wild?
They actually breed in the wild.
Okay.
So somebody asked here, do mules live as long as horses? And what is the appropriate age to stop working them? Mules actually live longer than horses do. The average age for a horse is right around 30 years old, give or take. A mule can actually live up until it's about 40, 45.
Wow.
And when you stop? When would be an appropriate age to kind of stop working one? I mean, I've seen riding mules be ridden well into their 30s.
It depends on the animal.
It really does.
Yep. So when you say you're looking at a baby mule, I mean, this is almost a lifetime commitment for you.
Oh, absolutely. I'll probably have this thing until I'm ready to retire, but I don't know if I'm ever going to retire. I kind of love what I do, so.
Yeah, dude, you don't have to retire if you enjoy your job, right?
Yep.
All right, let's, U.S. Forest Service uses pack animals, absolutely.
Yep, they do.
So a lot of people are asking if you ever watched Steve Young training.
I have not seen Steve Young yet. I've heard a lot about him just from people commenting and saying I should check him out. Someone I really enjoy watching is Buck Brannaman, and more recently I'm getting into Warwick Schiller.
Okay, cool. And when you watch another trainer, you don't just copy them, right?
No, I try to take into account what they're saying. I try to use my own style, and I ultimately just kind of experiment around to see what works best for me.
Mm-hmm. Because animals literally respond differently to different trainers.
Yep.
So.
I mean, they respond based off of your energy.
Uh-huh.
If you're really high energy, you may not get much done. I know when I first started, I did have high energy. I didn't really know how to control it. When I was riding, my instructor said I had a hot seat. So, I mean, it didn't matter what I tried to do. I felt like I couldn't get much done because the horse just wanted to run because I was sending all that energy down through my seat into the horse.
You know, what's interesting is research recently has decided that horses can hear your heartbeat from like 4 feet away.
Oh, absolutely. So that's kind of how they are in a herd environment too. If they're all together in a herd, you'll see, like if something's approaching it, you'll see one horse kind of perk up and look over. And then after a while, you see another horse perk up and look over, and then they're all kind of in sync in that situation. So when you're out there trying to catch horses and you got one horse in that herd that is really fearful, you're going to see that energy transfer over to all the other horses in that herd.
So, have you ever trained a hinny?
I have worked with hinnies a little bit, just kind of picking up their feet, but all the hinnies I've seen are pretty small.
Okay. People are wondering if they train the same as a mule.
More like a donkey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they take after their mom there. Alrighty. Anything going on? Oh, Jason, do you ride or have a personal horse? I do not have a personal horse. I have thousands of horses a year, so. No, I did not grow up with horses, and so I never had that young desire to ride horses. And after Tanya and I got married, I did ride quite a bit, and then as I get older, I find I don't get back up off the ground as well. So.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that too.
So, yeah, I try to stay safe. Looking. Anything on Facebook? Anybody got a question?
Going kind of slow on Facebook.
Yeah, we only have 35 people watching on Facebook. Sometimes Facebook doesn't give us a lot of viewers. I don't know what it is. All right, is it true that a mule can jump a fence from a standstill?
Oh, absolutely. We have one here. She definitely proves that she can do that.
So she goes in the pasture she wants.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
She is getting a lot better.
Very good. You're still young. Yes, we're not still young, unfortunately. Scrolling back, looking here. Anybody got some more questions? Feel free to send them in. Anybody have any training questions? What's your favorite part of training, Kory?
My favorite part of training, I'd say, would be taking a horse that's either fearful or just doesn't trust people and gaining that trust.
Somebody asked, have you ever been afraid of a horse?
Yes. Yes, I have. There have been a couple horses I've been afraid of. And I mean, it's pretty rare, but when you got a horse coming at you, striking with both front feet, almost looks like a boxer coming at you, it could be pretty scary.
So I will just give a little disclaimer here. If you never have fear or respect, because they're really close to the same thing. If you don't have some fear every once in a while, you need to reevaluate why you're putting yourself in situations that where you're not feeling like I need to control the situation, maybe get out of the situation.
It's more of like a self-preservance kind of state of mind. Yeah.
But yeah, no. Has there been any? Have we had any dangerous horses since you started working here? Like horses where you're like, we need to just handle this one from outside of chutes.
Yes, we have. There has been several. There was one Mustang in particular. I was able to get a few things done with her, but her name was Coco. I'm pretty sure if you guys have been watching the episodes, a few months ago she was adopted out. But when we first got her, she would really try to get in your space, run you over, try to kick you. But I got her to the point where I can walk up and halter her and handle her everywhere I needed to, pick up all of her feet. And she went to a home. The guy does text me sometimes, ask me questions. It's, same thing. Horses are going to respond differently to different trainers.
Yep. That's cool.
But we have another one right now, a thoroughbred that has barely been handled, and it's taking a lot. No, we got her as owner surrender.
I gotcha.
And she really struggles with paying attention to you. She's always trying to get back to her buddies, so it does kind of create a dangerous situation.
So I saw you training a horse that was buddy sour, and that was pretty cool, Tony. I'd never seen that style of training before. As far as fixing that, is that something that she's ready to work with? Or
she was probably the one that I was doing that with.
Okay.
So she was very attached to her friends that she came in with. So her name is Kat, and the other one was Irish. I put them both in the round pen together, and I worked them around until they figured out that they're fine when they're not right next to each other. And it does take a little bit. You just gotta send them around till one's ready to stop, and then you just try to get the other one to stop on the opposite side, and sometimes they'll join back up, and you just kind of got to work them until they realize, okay, well, we don't have to work when we're separated, so let's just kind of separate, and then you give them a break, let them kind of relax, and then that's pretty much the end of the session.
So one thing I think that I've learned watching you work is when you're a horse trainer and you're working through an issue with a horse, it don't matter if you get hungry or thirsty or you're tired, you have to work on that until the horse is done.
Absolutely, and I've been stuck in a round pen before for 4 or 5 hours, just trying to get a horse to look at me like this. I probably know a little bit more now than I did when I was doing that, but I mean, there's times where you're really working on something for a long time. You got to try to figure out a point that you can stop that is productive for both you and the horse. If you spend too much time, you can really make the horse sour to certain things. So I've definitely learned in the past few years, like you gotta try to get it to a point where you can call it good, and you can come back maybe the next day or later on that week and get something else done with that animal.
Do horses prefer saddled riders or bareback?
In my experience, I've noticed that horses do respond better bareback. It really just depends on the horse, but I definitely feel more comfortable in the saddle.
Alrighty.
Beth asked a question, how do you train a horse when you don't have a round pen or a small area, only a big pasture? I would recommend getting some sort of catch pen area, a smaller area that you can get the horse in to work it, just to try to get something else done with it. But other than that, if you are out in a big area like that, you can work on something called drive and draw. It's pretty much when the horse is looking at you, you give it a break, let it relax. And when it wants to leave, you put pressure on it, and then when it comes and looks at you again, you take the pressure off.
So how good are lunge lines for as far as if you're out in a pasture and you just put on a big lunge line and work it?
That could potentially create a dangerous situation if the horse decides to take off and rip that thing out of your hand.
And then it's running around the pasture with a big lunge line trailing behind it, and it gets caught in something, and lots of potentials for problems. Yeah. Somebody asked what we do for fun when we're not working at Horse Plus. Do you know what that word means, fun?
I mean, I have fun every day, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, I know, right?
What I do for fun, I like to play disc golf, so I've been doing a lot of that recently. And other than that, and just hang out. I like watching football, and I definitely enjoy shooting guns. So
nice.
There's that.
I enjoy all kinds of things, from mechanicking on my cars to driving, and I mean,
Oh yeah.
just the whole. I'm a musician. I'm deeply involved in church. I'm a church pianist, so lots of fun things to
Yeah.
have done out there. All right, Kory, I think you're the horse is responsive. Okay, cool. Thoroughbreds are not good. Have you ever worked with llamas?
No, I haven't worked with llamas, but I have handled a couple alpacas.
Alpacas are much nicer than llamas. I've
Yeah, they
worked
still
with
like to
both.
spit on you though.
Only if you make them angry or happy.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So all the time.
You basically no. I've dealt a bit with them both, and I definitely prefer alpacas. They're smaller. They don't spit as much, and they're just nicer. So, what's your thoughts on bitless riding?
On bitless riding, I mean, I typically start any horse that I'm working with under saddle with a halter. So I wanted to understand how that pressure is with the halter, because eventually you do want to finish them out in a hackamore.
Somebody asked if there's such a thing as a horse that's too damaged, and I know they're not talking about physically damaged. They're talking emotionally or mentally damaged.
I mean, it definitely is it's definitely something that I've seen, but you can still get stuff done. We do have a horse here named Carol. She has definitely had something traumatic happen with her. I've been trying to figure her out for a long time, and last week we actually pulled her in the round pen, and Dallas showed me a couple things that she's learned from Warwick Schiller, and I finally got to see her relax, and she had really big release. She was yawning, licking and chewing, so I'm definitely going to try to use what I learned there and apply it to Carol and any other horse that I come across that has the same kind of mental well-being.
So, from a sheltering standpoint, there are absolutely animals that are too damaged to rehab. If they're dangerous, if they've learned dangerous behaviors where they're a danger to themselves or others, it's not fair to keep them in a situation where they're so afraid that they're lashing out all the time.
It's a quality of life question.
It is a quality of life. And I came up with a new way of describing why euthanasia isn't a bad thing for animals that are hurting. And that hurting can even be emotional or psychological. Yeah. We're turning off the pain switch. So this animal's living in constant pain. We can leave the switch on and they can keep living in pain, or we can turn the switch off and they can be released from that pain forever. So there are animals that are too damaged mentally. And it's sad because
it really is.
That's a human did that to that animal.
Yeah.
And that human is the one that needs to be suffering from it.
It's kind of hard to undo some of that damage sometimes.
All right, are horses saved from auction hard trained due to the trauma they had gone through?
Absolutely. I mean,
it depends, though. I mean,
it does depend.
Yeah.
I mean, I've probably worked with in the last year since I've been here, over 500 different horses. So I've definitely learned a lot working with all those animals, and I feel pretty confident in my ability to almost help any horse turn around.
Absolutely. So yeah, the auctions are traumatic for horses. I know the first horse Tawny got from an auction after we got married that kind of jump-started Horse Plus. It was a registered quarter horse named Skip, and it took her like 6 days to be trail riding her. She's completely unhandled, but she was ready to go. She's smart. She's good to go. So
sometimes you get that. You get those good minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
I got a question from Carrie. Which horse make has surprised you with changes they've made during your time at Horse Plus?
I think they mean mule, horse or mule.
A horse or mule. So there was one horse named Snow. I'm sure you guys have seen me work with her. And when we first got her, she was really aggressive towards people. You'd walk into a pen with her. She'd start pinning her ears. If she couldn't run you over, she'd just run away from you. And I got her to the point where I was throwing a saddle on her, and I was getting ready to ride her before she was adopted. So I mean, seeing that transformation, that was pretty big for me.
That's really cool. Absolutely. Oh yeah, somebody's wondering what happened to Delente.
Delente was adopted out, and I don't know if we have gotten many updates from him, but we know that he's doing well. The person that adopted him actually got some draft stocks before we allowed the horse to leave. So we know that he's being taken care of.
Yep, because he had a lot of hoof issues.
Yeah, his hoof should be healed up pretty good now.
Somebody's like, I remember Snow. That's awesome. What
got my buddy Kurt saying hi. Hey Kurt, hope you're doing good today, buddy.
Gonna be going through some comments here. Um,
The cute little mini mules that we recently got, they're up in quarantine. I think they're getting their intake done today, so they're getting their vaccinations and
Yeah.
exceed and everything. Can we talk about that situation yet, or no? Okay.
what can I do for a horse that is buddy sour?
A horse that's buddy sour.
There's a training question finally.
Yeah, I was talking about that a little earlier. Actually, if you get that horse in the round pen with the other horse that it's really buddy sour with, you can kind of work them around in the round pen until they realize, it's kind of better just to be off by myself. It might take a while to really do that. I'm sure there are other ways that you can work on that issue. I probably got to do some research, but I found that the way I've done it works the best for me.
So do you just focus on the one that, this comes from a non-training perspective, you just kind of focus on making the one that is buddy sour kind of keep going around,
Yeah.
and not put any pressure on the other one?
Well, typically the one that is less buddy sour will stop first, and then you just kind of have to, focus on the other one. It will probably run around and join up with his buddy a couple times before he realizes, okay, if I just stop over here, there's no pressure and I can relax a little bit.
So your goal is to get them to focus on you and be happy with you, not with their buddy.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. You just want them to be able to pay attention to you. If a horse isn't paying attention to you and is just trying to get away, it does create a dangerous situation. So you really have to get that horse's mind with you.
Well, and it's fairly dangerous to be riding a buddy sour horse if A, you don't know it's buddy sour, B, you're not a real accomplished rider, and you're out on the trail and it's like, oh, by the way, I'm going home now.
Oh, yeah. And in that situation, I mean, I've been on horses before that have been really buddy sour. They just want to be right next to their friend. And in that situation, you need to work them right there next to that horse or right next to whatever they're magnetized towards until they look away or think away. And then you take that pressure off, let them kind of settle down away from that thing. And they start to realize, okay, when I'm over here, it's actually hard. When I'm over here, it's easy. And over time, they'll start to figure out, okay, I don't have to be that attached to this. I don't have to be magnetized to this.
So it's not really just we like to, I think it's called amorphize animals, where we give them human emotions. It's not that they're like, oh, I just really like this horse, I'm going to hang out with it.
No, it's the herd mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a really good book out there. I've probably read it about almost 20 times now. And it's called Evidence-Based Horsemanship, and it really goes through kind of how horses think. It goes over how their brains work. It's really informative. I would definitely recommend reading it. But it puts into perspective, okay, horses don't think like you and I do. They don't have emotions like us. They have their basic instincts, and that's about it. And the reason they think that way is because they don't really have a frontal lobe like we do. They don't have the thought process we do. They have their basic instincts, which are fight or flight. And when they're relaxed, they're in a state of mind called homeostasis. That's when you see them licking and chewing. So you kind of have to train based off of that, not, okay, this horse is angry, because, most of the time they don't have those emotions.
Absolutely. Somebody keeps asking if you worked with llamas. No,
Nope.
Kory's never worked with llamas. Llamas are a whole different breed of animal than equines. How do you deal with the pain you must feel when you have to euthanize animals? And I think I can talk to this unless you want to.
That's kind of a tough question.
Yeah. So, like I explained earlier with the switch concept, is when you have an animal that's living in pain, and you as a responsible human have the ability to turn off that pain, why would you keep emotional pleasure from keeping that animal alive, right? So when you put things in perspective, and yes, it does hurt when you have a animal that you become attached to and you have to put it down. But you have to understand why is this affecting me negatively? Why am I not happy that I can relieve? And you shouldn't be happy that you're putting down animals, but you need to focus on the aspect of I'm able to relieve suffering.
Yeah.
And if you can relieve suffering, isn't that the humane thing to do?
Yeah, it is.
So
Absolutely.
it is hard putting down animals, and it is really hard when you get attached to them.
Yeah, that's probably the worst part of my job here is, when we have to do that. But like Jason said, those animals are in pain.
Yeah.
So
We haven't had to euthanize an animal for space for years. I mean, I can't even remember the last time we did. So any animal we're putting down, it's because there is a reason.
Yeah.
and it comes back to pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I, for one, do not want to keep animals suffering. And there is a point where it's a young animal and it has to have extensive rehab. Dr. Lydia was talking about this. She's like, you have to look at the long-term prognosis. If this animal can go through this period of pain and then have years of a good quality of life, do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If this is an older horse and you put it through the rehab and then it has 6 months and it's at the end of its life, why put it through that rehab? So there's a lot to sheltering and keeping animals free from pain. Any more books you would suggest?
I mean, there's just the books I read in college. There's a good one. It's called How to Train a Horse. I can't remember who wrote that one. Or no, it's called If I Were to Train a Horse. It's not a very big book. Most of these books that really go over a lot of detail on how to work with horses properly
Audio has cut out,
maybe
people are saying.
A few hundred pages.
Okay, people keep asking about June. Sorry to cut you off. They just keep asking June. June was adopted.
I saw June yesterday. June is doing amazing. She is going through her rehab. She is getting full body massages. She's getting all the food she needs. She is really doing good.
Nice. And she's putting on weight.
Oh yeah, she's putting on weight.
Because I mean, she's older.
Oh,
she's
yeah.
like 23, if I remember, 22.
She's a little older, but she's definitely doing better.
That's so great.
And can I tell them the page to go check out her progress?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
so. Jenna has put a page out there on Facebook, and it is, I believe it's called June's Recovery, or
Something like that,
let me look it up real quick.
So yes, June was adopted by our vet tech, Jenna, and Jenna would have been caring for her here, or she could adopt June and care for her at her house. So worked out perfect. Jenna absolutely fell in love with her. And
it's called June's Journey to Recovery.
She'll have to rename the page when
it's got
June
a
is
picture
recovered.
of June on there. So there it is. If you want to see it, here you go.
That is so cool. Alrighty, good for June, absolutely. Alrighty. Yep. So yeah, June was adopted. June, everybody loved June. All right, Kory, Jason, please explain bareback versus saddle again for my mare Flicka. It depends on the horse, doesn't it?
Wait, what was the question?
Whether a horse is like bareback or saddle.
Well, you really got to take saddle fit into consideration. If you don't know how to properly fit a saddle to a horse, I would recommend doing your research so you're not putting your horse in a situation where it could get stored up down the road. Really, the way I learned it is you should be able to fit your hand in between the saddle pad and the withers, and it shouldn't have that much pressure on it. Like, it should be a little snug, but if it's tight, then it's too tight for your horse. They have different size saddles you can get, and you really have to pay attention to the width of the gullet. Typically for quarter horses, it's around 8 inches. The most common one I see out there is probably about 7 inches, but I would recommend getting one that's at least 8 inches. If you got a quarter horse, for those smaller frame horses, then yeah, the 7 inch should be fine. But do your research on saddle fit, make sure that you have the right saddle for your horse. And something I see a lot that people really need to pay attention to, I don't know if we got the saddle pad in here, do we?
Underneath the saddle, don't we?
Yeah,
No, it's a saddle blanket.
Well, anyways, I could just explain it. So when you put your saddle on your horse, before you tighten that cinch up, just take your hand in the front underneath the gullet where your saddle pad is and lift your saddle pad up so it's not sitting on the withers when you go and tighten that down. Because if you don't do that, it'll just put a lot of pressure on their withers and it can make them sore. So really take that into consideration too.
So here's I'm allowed one dumb question a day. So here's my dumb question. So horses that get the 2 white saddle marks, if a horse is fitted properly, will it ever get those marks? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can't just go down to Tractor Supply, buy the cheapest saddle and throw it on your horse and you're good to go?
Sure can't. You got to do your research, make sure you got the right size for your horse there.
So can you adjust it? This is another question for all the non-horse people watching us. Can you adjust the saddle after you own it, or do you just have to buy the right size saddle for your horse?
You really just have to buy the right size saddle for your horse. They do have some saddles out there called flex trees, and it does give you a little bit more room of play. But I always like the solid wood trees. That's just kind of my preference.
Do you have a favorite saddle brand?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Just a good saddle is a good saddle. All right. How are the drafts doing? So obviously the one, I think they're talking about the one with the huge legs. So
Yeah.
that one had to be put down. There
Yeah.
was nothing. I mean, turn off that pain switch as quick as possible.
Yeah, that was probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. I mean, I think it'll be released on this week's video, and it'll kind of show you how severe it was.
We released some on Facebook and YouTube already, but yeah, it'll be in the episode this Thursday, and it's so traumatic.
So the 30 days of quarantine, it just helps us ensure that the horse isn't going to be sick or infect the rest of the herd that we have down at the main part of Horse Plus. Places I've been in the past, quarantine is typically about a week to 2 weeks, but the 30 days, it really helps them to kind of get everything they need. We make sure that we give them plenty of food. Some of them get fed twice a day, so it does really help with the 30 days.
Do we ever get harness horses here?
Oh, all the time, yeah. we get a lot of standardbreds out here that used to do the cart races.
Either that or Amish love them too.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and we do have a big Amish community near us. So
A huge Amish community.
you ever been down there?
Culture shock.
Yeah. It's like something back in the 1800s.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you're just driving down the road, all of a sudden there's a horse in the cart. Well, okay, we better get over.
It's kind of cool. Jason, do you still have Cowboy? Oh yeah, Cowboy's our little mascot, so
Yeah.
he's here to stay.
Oh yeah, he's enjoying his life out in the herd.
He's fat and happy. What can I say?
Yes, he is.
How do you choose which horses you're going to train daily? That's a fair question.
I typically work with the harder to handle horses, the ones that either don't have much handling or have shown aggressive behavior. I try to help them kind of trust people a little bit more, and once I feel like they're ready, I'll give them to somebody else to work with. I'm a pretty big guy, so I'm kind of limited to the horses I can ride here, but I can work with anything on the ground.
Absolutely. So you work with mostly the level 5s and 6s, if I'm not mistaken.
5s,
And-
6s, 4s, and 3s. I
And
try
you-
to do everything I can.
And you work with the shelter manager and the other trainers, and like, hey, these are the horses we're going to work with this week, and you guys just kind of build your own schedule and
Yep.
get them done. Because
Absolutely.
we try to get all the horses trained.
Yeah, we try to touch every horse at least once a week.
Which is a big feat, because there's
It
a
really
lot of
is.
horses here.
I mean, there was times I think we had almost close to 80 horses down here, and yeah, I was working about 15 a day.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, they need it.
I was pretty tired after that. Ready to go to sleep.
Since you like training horses, that must have been the most fun you ever had.
Oh, it was so much fun. Got home and I was ready to go to bed. And it's
That's
done.
right. Do you have a favorite horse here at the shelter right now?
I'd say my favorite horse here right now is Carol, but that's just because you
Yeah.
know I really want to see her do good and really make that turn to be able to trust people. I like the challenges. I guess I could say that.
Nobody's paying to have their questions answered. Yeah, I don't know what other questions people are asking. Do you work with any groups on trying to get the horse slaughterhouses shut down in Canada? Not directly. If there's any groups in Canada that are willing to work with us, we'd be more than happy to. But Canada's their own thing. They don't even release how many horses. Like the USDA and Canada have a thing going on where they don't even release the numbers of how many horses go to Canada. So there's some politics going on there.
Someone here, Cheryl, asked,
Okay.
are there some horses that come in that you not feel need the 30 days of quarantine? Yeah, there are sometimes, but either way, we let them finish out the quarantine before we bring them down. And that's mainly based off of our veterinarian here, and she makes that call.
And 20 years of sheltering experience.
Exactly.
So if animal control cedar or private owner surrenders come in and they're healthy, we don't put them in quarantine because they're likely to get sick in quarantine. So they can stay down here if they're not showing any signs of sickness. But for a sign of sickness, they go straight to quarantine.
Yeah.
And all auction horses are exposed to so much that they need quarantine right off the bat.
Yes, they do.
But I would say our protocols are really helping. It used to be like we would lose a lot of donkeys. And somebody actually asked earlier, why are donkeys so susceptible to respiratory illnesses? And I would say our protocol now is to the point where we're saving most of the donkeys we rescue.
Absolutely. We've really figured out our antibiotics and what we need to give them, so yeah.
And that's awesome because we're always looking for ways to get better. Tawny's walking by. I don't know if she wants to come talk to us or not.
Busy.
She's busy. Sorry, y'all. But
Do all rescue horses get adopted? We adopt out as many as we can based off of what their rehab is like and their training is
So
like.
we're not a sanctuary. We are a shelter. So every horse that comes here leaves in one of several ways.
Yeah.
It can be adopted, it can be transferred to another organization, or it can be humanely euthanized if it's in pain.
Yeah.
And that's the three ways. We don't have a lot of long term. We're not a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, if you want, what happened last week up there at Shelbyville. So
Yeah.
we went a protesting
We
because
did.
the Big Lick is doing their annual celebration,
Mm-hmm.
and they're celebrating pain, and I think it's just sad. So
It is really sad. I went to the protest with Tawny and Jason on Thursday. We went to Nashville. We protested the picture they put up on the side of the library there, which I don't understand how that ever got put up there in the first place. But then we did go to Shelbyville, and we stood outside and watched all the trailers come in, and we're protesting, chanting, getting a lot of dirty looks. Some people waving, some people honking. Supporting what we're trying to do there. And then Friday I did go back and I did the same thing. I sat there out in the front of the celebration and protested, and then I actually got sent in undercover to get some footage. And I've never seen anything like that. Like, the videos, they just do not really show what is going on in there. I mean, it was terrible to watch, and it was sickening. Like, I was sitting in the front row watching these horses go by, and it really did make me sick to my stomach.
So one of my good friends is a farrier, and he explained this. He's a world-class farrier, and it's Quint. And you worked with Quint much?
Oh yeah, I've worked with Quint a lot.
Yeah. So he is a really good farrier, and he's like, the Big Lick is literally making the horses lame, because anything that alters the natural gait of a horse is making it lame.
Yeah.
That's how you tell if a horse is lame or not, is if they're not moving naturally.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just sad.
The last class I watched was the 3-year-old class, and half of the horses that were in there already had severe DSLD in the hind end.
Sure.
And I could see their hips popping out. It was just awful.
And people defend it, and it's like, this is indefensible. So going back to the picture on the library, it's a picture of a walking horse in stacks and chains with a rider on it. And what's interesting is there's lots of other pictures around the library of, like, the state flower, the state rock, the state dog, none of them have people in it.
No.
It's like, why, for the horse, it's great, the Tennessee walking horse is a state horse. It's a wonderful breed. But why is that the only picture with a human in it?
Yeah.
So it needs to come down already.
It really does. They are plenty of other pictures they could put up of the Tennessee walking horse that really show it for its natural beauty.
Yep.
And they picked a terrible picture for that.
Oh, absolutely. Alrighty, I'm gonna look for some more questions. We're getting ready to sign off here.
Somebody asked me
Okay.
if I have personal horses. Yes, I do have personal horses. I
yeah.
have 2 personal horses of mine. One I'm keeping at my house right now, but that is my niece's horse, so eventually they will be going to her.
Nice. Does dressage make a horse lame? Are you familiar with dressage much? It's not probably taught at Federal River College.
No, dressage does not make a horse go lame. It actually does still show the horse for its natural ability. There is more exaggerated movements with that, but no, it's not a bad practice.
Cool. And I'm sure, every discipline where people have the opportunity to win, there are people who are going to hurt their horse to try to win. But dressage in general does not cause pain. Cool. Cribbing problems. Somebody's asking about cribbing. Maybe.
Yeah, you can get a cribbing collar and put it on your horse if it is really cribbed severely, and it's just a collar that goes around, and it usually has a piece of leather that goes up into them, so when they go to start doing that wind sucking, it'll put pressure there and they can't suck in, so it does eliminate the cribbing.
Would they ever learn not to, or do they have to wear it the rest of their life? Do you know?
Once they start, it's hard to quit. The way it was explained to me is it kind of gives them a head rush, as if you were smoking a cigarette or something like that.
Sure.
So it's addictive for them.
Interesting. Except for Roker, yes, I've heard lots of bad things about Roker. That's why they hold the horse's head up really crazy like.
Yeah, I like to show, like, whenever I'm working with the horse, I want them to be able to have their head in a nice low position. I don't want their chin tucked into their chest. It just kind of looks uncomfortable, and it probably is uncomfortable for most of them.
How do we stop horses that have been adopted out getting back in the slaughter pipeline again? Well, and
That's something we've been kind of pondering for a while now. Huh?
Well, we've been pondering it for 20 years now, you know. How do you guarantee that your horse is always safe? You can't guarantee it. You can do everything you can to find the best homes possible. And if people are willing to be a bad person, there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah.
But I will say it almost never happens.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
Yeah. And that's because we do screen our adopters closely. We want them to be adopting the horses for life. And any more things? We've been on here for an hour so far, so
All right.
I'm thinking big lick should be outlawed, huh? Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. What is the big lick? You want to give just like a 3-minute, 2-minute, 30-second, whatever of what big lick is?
Big lick is, I guess, a practice where people have the tendency walking horses. They put them in stacks, so they have their shoe.
Let me go find a stack.
All right.
While you talk about that.
There's one right over here, I believe.
Okay.
So they got their shoe on, and underneath their shoe, there's a stack, probably anywhere from 5 to 6 inches tall. And they put chains around their, the pastern area.
I'm gonna go find a scale.
But typically they do, to get them to get that flick out there, that really exaggerated look when they're throwing their legs up, is they will store their pasterns with some sort of chemical. They usually wrap that up in saran wrap, and then they put the chains around that, and then when they're showing, they'll take off that saran wrap if they got a sore. I'm pretty sure they have figured out ways to cover up those sores. But this is the basic stack right here. And this one is one that actually bolts down on the side here. It's got 2 eyelets right here. But that'll sit on the horse's hoof. And what I'm showing you right here is the front, and that's the back. And it's pretty gross.
If it didn't bolt down, that would fall off as soon
Yeah.
as the horse took 3 steps.
Yeah.
Like they have to. So I brought a scale, and somebody on Fox 17 comments was saying, those are plastic pads. There's no way they weigh very much.
We'll see about that.
All right, so that one's
about 6 pounds.
5 pounds. So if we put 2 of them on there,
Good.
because this is what the horse is carrying on its front, we are at 10 pounds, 9.5 ounces.
That's about 11 pounds of weight on the bottom of those horses' feet.
Which is so unnatural.
It really is. I mean,
So-
I don't see any reason why you would need to do this. And, you know, they have some classes there at the show where they do show them flat shod.
Yep.
And we don't see that big exaggerated movement. Those horses will probably have a decent life.
Oh yeah.
But showing in stacks and chains is just unnatural. It's animal abuse.
It is. So I'm still just like in awe about this. People are like, yep, nope, they don't weigh nothing. Here we go again. 5 pounds, 3 ounces. So if anybody ever says something like, oh, those pads don't weigh anything, you can tell them you watched live. It was weighed. It weighs over 5 pounds for one. And here's the lead. They're like, oh, it's plastic. Because I know there's also lead in there. This is heavy duty rubber. And yeah, this is plastic. This part right here is plastic.
Yeah.
But it's metal, rubber, and lead in the bottom. Because they want the weight. So, alrighty guys, that was a good talk.
Someone did ask,
yeah.
Cheryl, when you go to the auctions, can you tell which ones were in the big lick? And yes, you can. There's some signs that you can tell, usually the way their hooves are trimmed.
And the way their back end is broken down.
DSLD, really severe, and a lot of hip problems.
Yep. Alrighty. What do you guys usually pay for one horse at auction? So auction prices is between 35 and 60 cents, usually 50 cents a pound. So $500 to $600 for an average sized horse is what we have to pay to save them from slaughter. Alrighty. Well, I'm good.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks, Kory, for
Yeah,
joining us
you
this
bet.
morning. And y'all take care. And thank you guys for watching. And have a great afternoon. And I'm hoping to have a very interesting video from our early days released for next Sunday. It won't be, 10 or 14 hours, but I'm hoping it's going to be long enough. And it is interesting going back, 9, 10, 12, 15 years ago, looking at the old videos. So keep an eye out for that. And our team is busy on Horse Shelter Heroes, the new episode about the auction. So take care, y'all. Have an awesome day.
All right, bye.